Hello, this is Dave Hearn with episode 10 of the Photo Geezers, along with Dick Yarmy. There's Dick.
Morning.
Morning. So today we're going to do part two. This is episode 10. We're going to do part two of what I call seeing color in black and white. As a kind of overview, Dick's going to start out and give you a review of some of the concepts that we explored in episode one. And then we're going to take a look at two free mobile apps. They're available on both iPhone and Android, and looking at how we can examine color and how it shows up in black and white. And actually, it's kind of a special treat because we're going to have kind of an old school look at how you handle color prior to having all the software that we have today. The apps that come with your phones are pretty good and can do pretty good black and white conversions, but you don't have as much control as these two apps have. And just as a kind of caveat, I want to add that what we're trying to do is give people some more options in terms of exploring black and white conversions. It's not something anybody has to do. We just want to let you have an opportunity to experiment with other ways of doing things. So Dick, you want to take over here at this point in time?
Sure. The concept that I looked at over the last 2 weeks was to try to start kind of at the ground floor along with the other club members, because I have not utilized my iPhone very often for photography. And I certainly have had no experience with either Snapseed or Polarr, the two applications that you can do the conversion in. So what I try to do is take the theory that Dave talked us through last month of color being broken down into hue, saturation, and luminosity, which happen to match the sliders on many programs. Some might call it hue, saturation, and brightness. But it's basically the same thing. And what I tried to do was break that down to how I could make it work with the software. And of the three, the interesting thing about it, all you have to know about the first one, hue, is that it is in fact the actual color. Hue would be blue or red or green or whatever actual color you had in the color photograph. You have to either have a reference to that or remember it when you're working with your black and white picture. The next one, saturation, is just the strength of the color. You know, think of the difference between cobalt and light blue or sky blue. The interesting thing about that control is we can forget it, because when we convert, either of the programs convert, they take care of the saturation. They pull the saturation out of the picture. So our picture is now a series of gray tones. Now the third, which shows up as a slider, is either brightness or luminosity, is how we then paint the picture, how we choose the value or tone of the various colors that we want to use to make our black and white picture. We either strengthen or lighten them. We add white or we add black to that tone to give us the picture we want. And it's actually, I hope I haven't oversimplified it, but it's actually that simple. You really have to remember one of the controls, the hue, and then you have to control the luminosity or the brightness, and you can paint a black and white picture. And Dave, if I've said something that's technically incorrect or just plain stupid, please jump in. Okay.
So are you seeing this?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm done.
Okay, well, again, what we're going to do is here's a color bar, and if we desaturate those colors, then we end up with the tones underneath. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over to a display of my iPad, and we're going to start out with Polarr. Polarr, like I said, is a free app you can download from the App Store. And when you first launch it, what it will do is it'll bring up your camera roll on your device, and you can go through and pick various pictures that you want to adjust. In this particular case, Dick made this really nice little display of using different objects with different colors as a way of to explore the conversion. So if you see my arrow right here, I'm going to pick that. I'm going to just tap on the screen and bring up that particular photo into the Polarr app. Now, there are lots of controls, and we're not going to go into any of that. The only thing that we're going to concentrate on is if you see down here at the bottom where it says adjust, we're going to just tap on it. And that's going to open up another control panel. As you can see here, we have all these different controls across here. But all we're going to do today is concentrate on either color, using the color part of the app, and HSL, which stands for hue, saturation, luminance, could be hue, saturation, brightness, the same thing. So let's start with color. And that brings up these controls for color. And you may have, on your app, you may have to scroll up and down a little bit to get what you want. But all we're going to do in color, as Dick talked about, is we're going to take the color, we're going down here where it says saturation, the line on saturation. So I can raise the saturation up, make things a lot more brilliant, but that's not really what we want. What we're going to start out doing is simply take all the color out of the image. So I'm dragging the saturation all the way down to where we just have a black and white image. And that's all we're going to do at this point with the color tool. What we're now going to go
Dave, so I was not misleading to them. On some of the other programs, when you make a black and white conversion, it does that for you. I told them that they could forget saturation. I forgot you have to manually do it in Polarr.
Right.
But in some of the other iPhone applications, you just hit black and white, and what it does is exactly what you did with saturation.
Right. So now I'm going to hit the HSL tool. And what that will do is bring up this tool that you now have the different colors that we can control. And the white ring indicates which color we've selected. So if I go to orange, that white ring is going to shift over to there. But as Dick pointed out a minute ago, all we're really concerned about at this point in time, because we've desaturated, we're not worrying about hue, we're not worrying about the saturation because it's been taken out. All we're left is the luminance, the underlying tone in the color. So if I look at the luminance, this is red, the red channel. I can either make it towards black or I can make it towards white. I can change the luminance up by adding basically white to it, or I can take it towards a darker tone by going towards the left. So if I were to take the slider, you can see what happened to the red that's in the pot. I think I can, here's what the original image was, and here's what it is in black and white. If I want that red to be lighter, I can take the slider all the way over to the other side, and now I have a lighter color. Similarly, I can do this with other channels. I can go to orange right here. And again, I can either make oranges lighter or I can make them darker. Look what the peach does as I move that around.
And I think the other thing for people to be cognizant of as they're adjusting the slider is not only does it darken or lighten it, it changes the apparent contrast, because you have other colors reflected in something like that red pot. There's some yellow there, and you realize that the ribbing around it and the embossing starts to jump out as you darken. So as you're painting your picture in black and white, you're adjusting not only the apparent color, how gray or how black or how white it is, but also the apparent contrast.
So
or definition. Yeah.
right. So for example, as Dick was pointing out, if I now go to yellow and I can move the yellow down. What I want you to do, I'm going to expand this. What I want you to do is look at the gourd, this object back here. And what happens is, let me put this back at 0. You don't see much texture in that gourd, but as I take the luminance down in the yellow channel, look at the texture that comes out in that gourd. Now, this is one of the reasons why you would do this over just doing a one-stop, one black and white conversion. This gives you control over things, and as Dick pointed out, you can start bringing real fine contrast to various areas in your picture.
And fine contrast within a picture is what's usually defined, in photographic terms as pop. Where things pop out at you, and you get a more three-dimensional appearance to a two-dimensional object.
So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick one last channel, and we'll kind of wrap this up. And I'm going to take the green channel, because remember the bottle was green and this tassel thing up here was light green. It was a yellow green. So you've already seen that I've lightened it up compared, you can see the yellow green in it. Now if I go and take the luminance green channel, I can either darken that bottle and the tassel that's above, or I can lighten them up, and you can kind of decide where you want that object, what kind of tones you want in the bottle. So we basically are adding fine control to the tones and luminance of each different color. And that's the beauty of Polarr, is it allows you that fine control even on your iPhone with iPhone images. Dick, you had some comments about from here, what, after you've got those tones the way you want, you wouldn't be done, right? Normally.
Yeah, you could then, go into some contrast, and black and white effects, but, I think that'd be a subject for another broadcast, because I'd start getting in the weeds. But yes, you can then still go in and do the normal black and white adjustments,
Contrast,
which are contrast and brightness, and putting vignettes around it, and all the things we've learned to do with our color pictures are still available to you here. So you can do a lot, I guess, is what I'd say, is you can spend a lot of time on a picture to get it exactly the way you pre-visualized it when you saw it.
So now I'm going to go back to Dick, and we're going to look at this image here again in Lightroom. Dick's going to talk to you about the old school way of controlling these colors.
Yeah, and I think the only real maybe it's interesting, but I think the only real takeaway is how much more control you have now digitally in modifying the look of something. As Dave says, in old school, when you had black and white film, and you wanted to change the appearance of a red, yellow, or green object, you use filters. And this straight conversion, Dave, without any filter? I can't. Yeah. I have my cheat sheet telling me what I'm talking about up close to the screen that's blocking it. Okay. Yeah, I moved it. That's better. I think I remember what I'm talking about now. Okay. That's basically how this was a black and white camera, by the way. This camera does not shoot color. So this is exactly what the scene looked like. I guess I would note to myself, we should have blocked some of the light off the gourd and maybe a little underexposed, but pretty much that's the black and white picture. Now we can add a filter to it. Just go to the first filter, Dave. All right, it was red. Yep. You can see what happened to the square pot, the canister. By adding a red filter, the color you add is you lighten that color and you darken the opposite color on the color wheel. The most common use of a red filter, here we're using it to show you how light it can make that and how it brightened up, how it changed the green and the yellow. But the most common use in the old days of a red filter was a nice, beautiful landscape with puffy white clouds. If you put a red filter on, the sky goes almost blue-black, and then the clouds really jump out. A yellow filter was, Ansel Adams' photographs would be a great example. He worked almost always with a red filter. A yellow filter is a lot of people, a lot of black and white photographers kept yellow filters on their camera all the time because it ups the contrast. So if you're an available light shooter and you're working with kind of soft lighting, it gives you a little more definition, a little more pop. And a green filter was used, and I think we have a green, pardon?
Never mind.
Okay, a green filter. Here's a yellow green. I think I had a light green.
Yeah.
A yellow green filter was used to, or a dark green, either one, to lighten foliage. You know, you could, if the grass was going black, you put a green filter on, you could lighten the grass. And that's how it was done. And again, the main point, the takeaway, because I don't think any of us are going to go back to shooting film and colored filters. The takeaway is you can do the same thing today digitally with a lot more control. You could end up with a very dark red filter or a very light red filter by how much you introduce in the digital program.
So now
that's all I know.
Now we're going to show how you can do this with a mobile phone. What I've opened up here, and several of you I know already use this, is Snapseed. So I've opened up Dick's photo inside Snapseed. And what we're going to do is if you go down here to the tools in Snapseed, I'm going to click on the tools. And one of the tools you have is a black and white conversion. So all you do is touch the black and white, and you come up with this conversion. Now you have different levels of contrast that you can have a neutral, you can have, you know, high contrast, you can do different starting points of contrast. But let's just use the neutral. And here's the main thing we want you to concentrate on is this tab that's called color filter. So if you bring up the color filter, these are the same, think of these the same color filters that Dick just went through, that he had actually put on his camera in front of the lens. We can now in post-processing with Snapseed do the same thing. So if I were to hit the red filter, I immediately change the look of the photo. I've applied a red. If I do orange, I get a different look again. If I do a yellow, again, I can change it. So this is a very quick and easy way. Let's try the green, and you can see what happens with the green filter. And look what has happened to the red in the picture. The red is almost totally black now, versus when we had the red filter here, it's all white. Now, we're not going to go into the fine details of it. You do have this adjust level here where you can adjust brightness, can adjust contrast, and so you can dial back the effect if you want. You can control it with the adjust, but that's something you can play around with. The important point here is that you have this color filter, and it's a very quick and kind of old school way of adjusting the look of your picture. So let's just take
the only thing, David, the only thing you have to remember is, and you pointed it out very well with, oh my gosh, look what happened to the red. When you use green, as I mentioned, quite often used to lighten the grass or the foliage. Mm-hmm. You've got the alternate thing happening of the bark in the trees, which has a lot of red in it. It's going to go a lot blacker, and right. You may end up lightening the grass and not getting the effect that you want. So when you add a filter, it's much more of a global change than what we showed you in the other program. So it's kind of important you look at your whole picture every time you add a filter. You might have helped something and hurt something else.
Yeah, and just let me make I'm going to point out something here with the tools. Okay.
Okay.
So we're not going to go into this, but those who are really interested, and if you want to get that finer control, you have this tool called selective, and that will allow you to control individual colors before you do that black and white conversion. We're not going to go into that, but I just wanted you to know that that's there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up, just as an example, as Dick, one last example here of a okay. So Dick mentioned the Ansel Adams effect. So this is something I shot off my deck, had some nice clouds like Ansel Adams may have put into one of his photos. So if I go down to tools and pick black and white, so, and I'm just going to, again, I'm going to pick the neutral tonality that it has. So if I were to add a red filter to that, as Dick pointed out, if I put that red filter, the sky darkens considerably. And in the old days, how much you wanted that darkening, you would go from a yellow to an orange to a, and actually that's a little bit lighter than I thought it would be. So you can get different looks in your sky by applying different filters. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to stop my share of screen. And that's basically what we wanted to cover today. Again, you know, I want to emphasize we're not trying to get everybody to do this necessarily. We just wanted you to have some more tools that you can deploy while converting your photos to black and white if you wish to do that. Dick, do you have any?
No, and I think again, it's like any tool. If you choose to use it, there it is. And I can honestly say, having not done it before, it was relatively simple, probably simpler than I thought it would be.
So with that, we're going to conclude our two-part episode on seeing color in black and white. We're exploring what our next topic would be. It may key off a couple of photos that Buzz Yoder has sent in, but we'll leave that as a teaser to you. So have a good week.
Good to see y'all. Bye-bye.